Okay, we're going to talk now about hyperventilation. What is hyperventilation? Because the term does get thrown around, it gets applied to many different things. So basically, hyperventilation is when you breathe in excess for the level of activity that you're doing. So if I'm just standing here and I start breathing like this, then I'm hyperventilating. But if I were running and breathing like that, I wouldn't be hyperventilating because the level of activity calls for me to breathe that much. Now, when it comes to freediving, before a dive, we are more or less immobile. And during the dive, we are not very mobile. So when we are breathing in preparation for a dive, we want to breathe as if we were at rest. We want to breathe just as we would, or of the same amount, the same ratio as we would if we were just sitting on the couch, if we were trying to fall asleep as well. That's how you want to be breathing. Now, I'm not going to go into breathe ups right now because I'm going to make a video about that where I'm going to talk about a few different breathe ups and how we'll find one that works best for you. But for now, we're just going to talk about it in terms of the concept. We use it as an example for the concept of hyperventilation, because we really don't want to be hyperventilating for freediving. It is by far the most dangerous thing that you could do recreationally or at a competitive level as well. Hyperventilation leads to so many of the blackouts and the low oxygen situations that occur. Hyperventilation is the single most important safety information for people to learn. If I could teach someone how not to hyperventilate or how to rescue a blackout, personally, I would rather teach them how to prevent the blackout from happening in the first place. So for me, this is very important information. So you remember this graph from our last video. It is the graph to rule all graphs. The most important graph out there. So up here, we have our O2, this bar here is our O2 percentage, or our oxygen percentage. And like you know, at the beginning of every dive, we always start with 100% O2. Down here is our CO2. And as we use O2, we build up CO2. So this is us, the lines I'm going to draw here is on a dive where we are breathing ideally, when we are not hyperventilating. So we start our dive, and we're using O2, using O2, using O2, using O2. And eventually, you know, if we keep going, we will get to the point where we black out. Bang. Same thing. As we are consuming oxygen, we are creating CO2 as a byproduct. And as we dive, we increase our CO2 amount. And eventually we get to the point where we get the bang. The urge to breathe, that feeling of, oh, I don't like this anymore. Now that's us breathing in an ideal way, which I'm going to be covering in the next video. Now, as you know, if this were a static breath hold, and this line across is time, at about 25 to 35% of the way through, I'll get the urge to breathe, and when I hit around 5 odd minutes, I'll probably start to black out. Remembering those are just average figures for the average untrained adult. Because it is carbon dioxide that gives you the urge to breathe, a tactic in freediving for many years has always been to, well, why don't I just get rid of some carbon dioxide? And then I'll be able to dive for a longer period of time, or hold my breath for a longer period of time without experiencing any discomfort, without experiencing any urge to breathe or anything like that. So this is what happens when you hyperventilate. And when I say hyperventilate, we are talking about breathing in excess for the level of activity that you're doing. So for example, in freediving, this would be hyperventilating. You see, I'm still breathing slow and relaxed, but I'm breathing a lot. I'm inhaling a lot. When the body is at rest, you do something called tidal breathing. You inhale and exhale roughly 15 times per minute, and you inhale and exhale roughly half a liter of air per breath. That's what you do when you are breathing unconsciously, when you're getting ready to fall asleep, if you're just sitting on the couch or laying about somewhere, just sitting at rest, you will tidal breathe. It's the breathing that happens when you stop thinking and your body takes over and just breathes for you. Now that means in 1 minute, you will inhale and exhale 7.5 liters of air. I'm gonna write that up on my little board because that's an important figure. 7.5 liters, LTR. 7.5 liters of air. Apologize for anyone in the States who is operating around the imperial system. I'm not sure what that is in gallons. So, in 1 minute, you will inhale and exhale 7.5 liters of gas, of air into your lungs. Now, that is 7.5 liters of air that CO2 can mix into and escape with. So this is how we have to start thinking of hyperventilating or breathing in general for freediving. Not just like, oh yeah, I inhale for this long and I exhale for that long. It's mostly about the volume of gas that you inhale and exhale. So if I'm inhaling and exhaling a maximum of 7.5 liters of air per minute, that is me right here. This is me not hyperventilating for freediving. But if I were, for example, to maintain the same amount of breaths, but simply inhale deeper or bring in more gas into my body, then that would be more gas for CO2 to mix into and escape with. And therefore I would start my breath hold with less carbon dioxide. And that means we're gonna have something like this happening. It just takes a longer period of time for me to create the same amount of carbon dioxide to hit that critical point and give me the urge to breathe. That sounds pretty alright, do you know what I mean? I mean, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, well, you know, I'll just hyperventilate and be conservative and, you know, I'll just go up when I get the urge to breathe and everything will be fine. But there's actually a lot more that happens with hyperventilation. When you hyperventilate, you also significantly reduce the period of time that you can hold your breath for. So instead of being able to hold your breath for this maximal 5 minutes, you black out a lot earlier. And often people who have hyperventilated a lot will black out before they've even felt the urge to breathe. The most common story that I have ever heard with blackouts goes like this. I don't know what happened. I was feeling so good. And of course these people were feeling good because they hyperventilated. They felt no urge to breathe, and then before they even realized what was happening, they black out. Hyperventilation increases the period of time before you experience the urge to breathe or any discomfort, but it also significantly reduces the period of time that you can hold your breath for. Now, once again, there is more detail to go into here, but I'm gonna save that for the hyperventilation video that I make for the advanced course or the level 2 course. So just absorb this information now, and then we'll move on to some more advanced knowledge in the advanced videos. So really important, hyperventilation is not about the way you breathe, how fast you breathe, or anything specific like that. Hyperventilation is the volume of gas that you exchange over a period of time. So in this case, we'll use 1 minute because it's an easy sort of figure to work with. So hyperventilation for freediving is when you inhale and exhale more than 7.5 liters of air per minute. We can probably make a little equation here, you know, like per minute, PM. And anyone that knows anything about mathematics out there will be laughing at me for my bad design of equation. One of the more interesting things with this is that, of course, everybody's body is different. I can breathe in a certain way, and for my body, it won't register that as hyperventilating. You can breathe in a certain way, and that might be hyperventilating for you. For example, I have a very good friend that when he breathes like this, exchanging only 7.5 liters of air per minute, his body registers that as hyperventilation and he blacks out very early. For some people, this might even be too much. You might need to breathe a little bit more. Just like we all have a different natural tolerance to carbon dioxide, we all have a different natural threshold for hyperventilating. So in the next video, where I'm going to talk about breathe ups and preparation breathing for freediving, I'm also going to go through an exercise which is going to give you an idea of how susceptible you are to hyperventilating, because ideally you don't want to be very susceptible to it, but you need to know if you are. It's very important to know if you are susceptible to hyperventilation, so that you know that for you, hyperventilating is more serious than the average person, or it's just something that you have to manage in your diving life. Breathing and breathe ups will be the topic for the next video. We will cover how to breathe before a dive, how to breathe after a dive, your recovery breathing, and we will also go through an exercise that will give you an indication of how susceptible you are to hyperventilating and what your natural tolerance to CO2 might be.